Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Career Focus series on the Success Insight podcast. The Career Focus series supports individuals who are pursuing careers that tap into their skills and passions and introduces you to the entrepreneurs and organizations that are helping to make that dream a reality. Our guest today is Anita Jenke. Anita is the executive director at the Career Transition Center of Chicago, a position she's held since 2009. The CTC provides career coaching and programming to empower recent college graduates and mid-career professionals seeking meaningful work. Anita was the first development director at the Women's Treatment Center in Chicago. She has over 20 years of experience in nonprofit management, workforce development, and fundraising, and serves on the board of the Chicago Jobs Council and the DePaul Institute for Business and Professional Ethics. And she's also a member of the Career Education Advisory Council at Elmhurst College in the Chicagoland area. Anita, welcome to the Career Focus series on the Success Insight podcast.
Thank you, Howard. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Fantastic. And for our listeners, as usual, in the spirit of full disclosure, I've actually known Anita since 2009 when I was first introduced to the Career Transition Center of Chicago. So do you have a lot of history together? And I was thinking to myself, why haven't I ever had Anita on the podcast? And so here we are. And Anita, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm really excited to be here. Now, we've worked together for so long, and I'm just really excited to have this opportunity to spend time with you and to share some of my ideas and some of our resources with your listeners. So thank you, Howard.
Fantastic. First thing I have to ask is, I moved out of Chicago last year, June-ish timeframe, and been out here in Vegas, and I've still been involved with the LinkedIn Q&A calls on Fridays with CTC clients. And first question I'd love to ask is, how has the CTC kind of navigated this whole COVID-19? Large part of our coaches or the clients come into the center for coaching.
You know, that's an interesting question. We all saw the train coming, but I don't think we fully appreciated the impact this was going to have. We found out that someone in our exposed to COVID and we had to leave quite rapidly, and he closed down the office, and 18 months later, we're only going to be reopening this week. I would say for us, it went exceptionally well, and I attribute that to the staff who were prepared. We'd had a staff meeting and we knew there was a good chance we'd have to go virtual for a period of time. And Howard, as you probably know, we've been doing virtual services for out-of-state clients and those that are working for about 7 years prior to the pandemic. So we had the infrastructure in place and the coaches who were trained to do virtual coaching. And we've been using something called GoToMeeting even before Zoom. So it wasn't that difficult for us. We literally shut down. We contacted all coaches, facilitators, and clients, and at 9 a.m., boom, coaching was taking place, programs were taking place. We adopted Zoom within a couple weeks. We started out with GoToMeeting, and we realized Zoom was just so easy to use and less of a barrier to use. And our clients embraced it. Our coaches are amazing. I mean, our coaches have their own businesses, like yourself. They're consultants. They have full-time jobs. Some are semi-retired, and they range in age from 35 to, probably 70. No one blinked. They were amazing. They adapted so beautifully because they were drawn together by the sense that we needed to support people who are job seekers. They're going through job loss at a very unusual and devastating time. And there was that sense of esprit de corps that we are going to do this and it's going to be okay. And we're going to make sure that our clients feel supported. And so Blanche, our coaching and program director, did a magnificent job of rethinking our strategy. We started peer groups every single day. Tracy, who's our client services coordinator, was doing outreach calls, checking on people. Are you okay? Mentally, physically. We got donations from churches. We're able to give out gift cards to people who might have buy this and maybe needed some money for groceries. I mean, we're dealing with mid-career professionals, but this happened so fast and so many people lost their jobs so quickly that we had to spring into action with, a lot more supportive services than we would traditionally do for this population. But I give complete respect to our coaches, and our staff, and our board was very supportive. So for us, it was pretty seamless, but that's because we had the infrastructure and we had already been doing this with a segment of our clients. Now we did it for everybody. So I would say it was seamless.
I was, as I was preparing the show notes and I was thinking about our conversation, I literally forgot about the virtual services. And I think as I look back at like the company I was supporting out here in Las Vegas, I mean, they're for the most part, a virtual banking and credit card company, and
Hmm.
their ability to pivot literally in the moment was amazing. And I think again, I would attribute it to what you just said too, with virtual services. You had the model
Hmm.
and with this, you know, new thing in our midst, this COVID-19, and all of a sudden having to go and work virtually, you were definitely sounds able to adapt probably a lot more effectively than others, maybe who were in had similar types of models, I would say.
I think that's true. And I would also give a lot of credit to Deb Wilson, our operate finance and operations director. She set us up with GoToMeeting like immediately, and we were up and running. I know there's a patient that serves a similar population in the Chicagoland area, and they had to close for several months because they didn't have the infrastructure and they had, some funding challenges, sadly, but they got their sea legs and got up and running. But I mean, I think it's about being adaptable and flexible. We're living in a new world. I feel that this pandemic has launched us ahead 5 years on workplace trends. I feel that for an organization like us, we may be permanently hybrid, 2 days a week in the office, 3 days remote, because people want the convenience, they want the flexibility, they don't want to have to spend the time traveling, they don't want to pay for parking, and they will maximize the use of their time. And I think people have adapted and feel that they can get the support they need from coaches and in workshops virtually. And I think that's when done well, I think you can create a sense of community virtually. So I think we're in a brave new world, Howard.
I think you're right. I think you're right. So let's talk about the coaches for a minute. And first, if you could share a little bit about the CTC's model and its
Hmm.
use of coaches, because that's actually fairly unique. And I'd love if you could, for a minute, just kind of share that. But then I'd like to talk about how the coaches adapted themselves.
Sure. So the Career Transition Center was started about 25 years ago by a group of faith-based organizations, churches, and synagogue, but we're not a faith-based organization. They just felt there was no place for mid-career professionals to go to get support when they were in transition if they didn't get outplacement. And candidly, that continues. There are not a lot of organizations serving our population, so we use what I would call a team-based members in finding meaningful work. I think we're best known for offering people high quality, affordable career coaching and also really robust best practice programming around employment. We have about 50 facilitators. They that represents about 2,500 volunteer hours every year. They deliver the bulk of the coaching and the programming. Then as I mentioned, we have 4 staff. I think the core thing that people particularly come to us for is to get that one-on-one career coaching, because I think most people, it strikes me, have kind of fallen into their career without a lot of deliberation. And then due to, say, COVID, the travel industry, hospitality, event planning. And so suddenly they're having to reflect on, well, do I want to try and stay in an industry that's, not going to recover quickly? Are there other things I want to do? And even before the pandemic, when you hit, say, 35, 40, quite often people are like, maybe there's something else I should look at. Maybe there are other things that I could be doing. And that's the thing about our coaches. They are amazing people. They come from a range of backgrounds. They're sort of in common. They have backgrounds in hiring and managing people, HR, recruiting, executives, and they donate their time because they know they've got skills that can help someone else accomplish their goal of getting a promotion or getting a job. Some have, IPEC and such certifications, and we use a discovery planning action model. And a lot of our clients right now are in discovery, meaning I have to reinvent myself. So we just specialize in each of those three phases. And so we can connect them with a coach who can work with them. So during the pandemic, they're meeting with their coach by phone or Zoom for about 45 minutes, sharing their resume, their, hopes. And then the coach helps them develop a strategy for clarifying their next steps so that they can move forward with a job search.
How did the coaches, and I know you've kind of alluded to it. I mean, there's quite a cross section, everyone from age 35 up to the 70s, and overall the adaptability from being in person, with the exception of the virtual services, but the ones that are in person now having to do the coaching
Mhm.
virtually using Zoom or the phone. How did they adapt? I mean, what were some of their comments, their thoughts?
You know what? I was amazed. They were unified in that we need to support the clients during this really difficult time. We had no pushback. We had nobody quit or say, I can't do this. Our average coach has been with us. You probably know this about seven, like you during when the Great Recession happened. No pushback, no arguments. They were like, I will make it work. I'm excited about learning something new. And so that was zero problem. And then we started doing programming by Zoom. And so we have Blanche, our coaching and program director, there to support the coaches, do the breakout rooms, help with technical problems, answer questions about our services. And the coaches totally embraced it. We had no one who said, I can't do this or I won't do this. I was simply blown away by their commitment to our clients, really.
You mentioned with Blanche providing the support during the sessions. What else did you learn or was learned by the coaches, Blanche as well, working, you have the coaching appointments, which, I would imagine once you get used to it as a coach, client gets used to it. It's kind of like riding a bike. You just get used to it, you do it. But working on workshops where you have, a handful, 10, 15, maybe more
Mhm.
folks coming on, you've got the facilitator, then you've got all these people in the room. What lessons were learned there and being able to manage that type of flow of information?
I think for us, one of the most important things, creating a sense of community. It was a very isolating time, as you know, Howard, very isolating. Some of us were not even going grocery shopping. We were staying home for long periods of time. Probably half our clients are single, which mirrors the US population. So it was important to us that community that they knew that we're not alone. So every Zoom workshop starts with introductions. Everybody goes around, introduces themselves. We encourage them to share LinkedIn URLs, emails, and we encourage people to meet afterwards, have a virtual coffee. Um, Helping them get used to that gave them the skills and the courage to then reach out to other people to do Zoom networking. And that was a relentless pitch from us. You can still network, set up a Zoom chat, have a glass of wine with someone, have a cup of coffee. You don't have to stop networking. It's just going to have to be a little different. And I think by experiencing it and getting used to Zoom, because most people had not used Zoom to like Teams when they were working or, you know, other things, but not necessarily Zoom. And then Zoom became the thing. So learning how to use Zoom, I think by working with us and getting pretty savvy and then being comfortable reaching out to their peers in the workshops, I think it really did make a big difference in building people's confidence. I also think that creating a sense of online community was vitally important to keeping people's spirits up because initially we saw a lot of people scared. They were scared about their health, scared about their families, homeless because everybody was getting laid off. And happily, the government responded reasonably promptly with financial support so that people could stay home because for a while, any kind of job other than, like well, even Uber and Lyft that, there weren't as many people needing it. So we saw a lot of people doing DoorDash and Postmates and stuff, or doing Amazon things. So we found that there was a need of personal support. So Tracy, Blanche, Deb, and I were calling people, making sure they were okay, talking people off the cliff, getting people to interact more. We had peer groups every single day of the week. Normally it's twice a week, so that
Right.
people can do a check-in, so they could have human contact. And I think that's something we thought was vitally important.
How were you able to address, and I would call this pushback from, say, the client? And let me put this little context here. A lot of clients, they're not on social media. So
But yeah,
working with LinkedIn, it's like I've never used it. I don't want myself out there, and I don't want my photo. And
yes,
we've heard that before. This is not new
yes.
for us. And so I would imagine all of a sudden this having to step in and use technology to receive help for some may have been like, I'm not used to this. I don't know what to do. How did you address that type of challenge, that type of pushback?
So there were some people had computers up to speed. So we were able to get some donations to help people who were particularly hard hit to buy a new computer. Not there were a ton of them, a handful. Then yes, indeed, some people are not active on, not interested, fearful. Some have domestic violence pieces going on in their lives. And I started doing a workshop finding best practices in job search during COVID, which was almost like a survey course. And it spent a, a very significant amount of time talking about the importance of social media, particularly LinkedIn, and the importance of being prepared to do Zoom interviewing and Zoom networking. And I emphasize that this is LinkedIn is your face to the world. It's no longer, as soon as an employer looks at your resume, they're going to click on your LinkedIn URL and go look at your profile. This is no longer optional. This is mandatory. And I feel that people have come a long way in their thinking. Like, we'll get new clients who are like, I think I've got a LinkedIn account. I was talking to one guy and he had 3 LinkedIn accounts. And I'm like, oh, I said, we're going to have to retrieve those passwords. We're going to have to shut them down, ask LinkedIn to help us merge them. And I've, helped him through that. And we got that sorted out. And I think people understand, at least our clients have come around. And I mean, you can tell me that you do the workshops. I believe they come a long way in their thinking during COVID about LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. There's some who are like begrudgingly kind of moving along, but I think people are definitely realizing its importance. And as you, how was virtual services affected? Because I mean, these are clients that are all over the country.
That's interesting. So we always had, for the last 7 years, the daytime program, which was in person, and then the evening virtual program were outside of the Chicago metro area, and there were select coaches who were available only in the evenings. And then we had a dedicated peer group in the evenings, and then we had a YouTube channel where the evening virtual could go. Well, that kind of all got rolled into one.
Okay.
So with people being at home, even those that were employed could in fact come to daytime workshops. They could slip away, so to speak, from work for a couple hours to attend a workshop, because there were people we were working with who were on furlough, as well as some who were reduced to part-time, and as well as those that were unemployed. So we began to see less of a need to distinguish between evening virtual and daytime programming. So now what is, we do still have those evening coaches. Hey, you need to coach between 9 and 5 or 5 and 8. And then that determines which pool of coaches you'll get. And we assign the evening coaches so that they have a consistent somebody, particularly because if they're working, they need to be able to schedule ahead. And then what we're finding is that the evening, or the formerly evening, that we now call the flex time clients, a lot of them can get away during the day and attend a workshop. So we don't have that hard distinction anymore. It's become a blend. We are thinking of doing an evening peer group because we have so many clients working at least part time now. That's a big increase since, I would say, the vaccine came out. even though people are unemployed, a lot of them do have, like gig work or contract work. So we want to add that to see if that would be helpful. But yeah, the distinctions kind of melted away. So now everybody's virtual.
Yeah, and I love as you had said, you've got the hybrid approach. Sometimes you're going to be in the center, other times it is virtual, and I get it. I mean, that distinction, just given the nature of what we're going through, has kind of they're still
Mhm.
hiring, and there's a shortage of golf, so to speak. As far as the career transition center, I mean, you've been involved with them since 2009. Where do you foresee some new directions, just given what we're going through right now, and we're still dealing with the pandemic, whether people believe we need to be socially distanced or masked, say lower paid workforce because companies can't fill the slots. There's people looking for, I don't want to go through this again. I need to figure out what my plan B, my next career is. Where do you see the CTC going on that, helping to kind of redefine what service we deliver in the new reality going forward?
So one of the things I've been seeing, particularly in the last month, is a big increase in the number of people who are employed who are either have decided I'm quitting my job right now and starting with CTC to restart my career, or they want to work with us so they can quit as soon as possible and get a new job. That people wages have been pretty low since the Great Recession. They had not been a lot of upward movement. And with the pandemic, with some of the changes going on, wages are being pushed up a bit and people seeing an opportunity to move. So I can see us working more than we probably fully employed people. And I have to say, a lot of those people do seem to have some trauma, like maybe how they were treated by their employer during COVID. There's a lot of workplace trauma out there. And I would say some of these people, even pre COVID, felt that they were not and are, getting counseling for it, are now like, you know what, I have got to find a healthy environment. So I think that's going to be a pivot for us that we'll probably see more of it for the next couple of years. We've been doing a lot of outplacement, small businesses that got to be quite robust last year, as you might imagine. Probably the biggest year we've ever seen. We've been doing that for about 7 years. I think that more and more employers are getting it, that they need to give some form of outplacement to their employees. This was such a brutal year. And I think they felt, look, these are high performing people. We have to do something for them. So we saw a lot of employers who never offered outplacement. It couldn't afford some of the bigger players that had heard about us and thought, I can afford what CTC. So I'd like to see that grow because I think everybody needs outplacement of some sort, whether it's with us or one of the bigger companies, because a lot of our clients haven't looked for a job in 10, 5, 15 years. And oh my goodness, so much has changed. We're also doing a lot of educational institutions, nonprofits around managing conflict in the workplace, resumes, cover letters, interviewing skills. We've also been doing some more work with youth, recent college grads, both because their parents were like, you need to go here because you need to get out of the basement and get a job and get a life.
Yeah.
Or they are first generation from the city in Chicago, and they're the first one to go to college in their family. And we're starting to do that more. We're seeing more people from out of state come to us. So those are some of the trends over the last, 18 months that we're seeing. And I really like to see employers realizing the importance of providing people with a soft landing with career support. Because, if you've been at the same job for 10 years, you may not have a LinkedIn account, to be completely honest with you, because you've had the job. Some of them come to us and say, I've never had to look for a job. People approach me, I don't have a resume. Well, imagine if you lose your job and you're like, I don't have LinkedIn, I don't have a resume. Wow. It's a brave new world for some of these people, and it's a shock.
It is. And what I really love what you shared too is just given again the unique circumstances of having to adapt to COVID, but all of a sudden, these organizations who didn't have an outplacement program, whatever, even if they perhaps did, but not everybody got it. And I mean, the CTC certainly was very well positioned to absorb that type of clientele and easily to bring them into the programming.
Yeah, and I think during such a difficult time, the idea of going it on your own with a job search, if I'd gotten laid off during COVID, I think it would have been emotionally overwhelming to think about doing this by yourself in such utter isolation that we were forced into.
Yeah, I mean the isolation. I mean, granted, I am working, but I'm isolated, and it
Yes.
even like that. I mean, I do a podcast like you and I are doing, or I get on a LinkedIn Q&A call. I'm around people, but I'm still isolated, and it's like having this anchor is just kind of weighing down at you, I think.
Yeah, and I think if you combine the not having the structure that a job gives you, and then worrying about, will you have a place to live? Do you have enough food? Can't find toilet paper, can't find hand sanitizer, can't get math. I mean, sometimes people would come to the info sessions and they would just cry, because they were just completely emotionally overwhelmed because things happened so very fast. And I think that's why we put such an emphasis on high touch support and a sense of community that, we don't want people to think that don't have to be, even if it's not CTC, and odds and churches universities are doing a lot with their alumni. Libraries, there's a library that they had an extremely robust virtual program, peer groups, workshops, coaching, and we got connected. Actually, I think you referred somebody to talk to me, and he connected me to her, and I ended up doing a workshop for them. And so there are even these libraries are stepping up in a big way to help people. So you don't have to go it alone. There are resources. You just have to look for them.
Yeah, and that's just all comes down to good marketing and communication, and here we are and finding ways to share that message. I mean, you have again since 2009, been a part of the CTC. Where do you see your career and your trajectory? I know you and your roommate are quite the world travelers. To be well, I'm sorry, it used to be pre-COVID. Okay, where do you see your trajectory? Because you've accomplished a lot here. I mean, you'll
Mhm.
be here for the rest of your life. That's great. But what else? What are you doing to kind of take care of yourself as well and enjoy your
Right.
life?
That's, you know, yes, I was an intrepid world traveler. As a matter of fact, I was in China in November of 2019.
Oh my,
Right before, yes, yes. I was in Chengdu, which from Wuhan. And actually, I came back and I was and I'm now reflecting as to whether I might have had COVID because it was like the flu.
oh boy.
Yes, I usually went abroad once a year. That has not happened. I've been renting with my family a beach house in Alabama, and we bring all our own food and go nowhere. We just stay on the beach.
That sounds like fun.
I was going to go on an Alaskan cruise with my sister. And unfortunately, I fell and broke my left wrist this year. As you may
Oh,
recall, I broke.
oh gosh.
So I'm going to be staying in the United States traveling because I want to get caught overseas if there's an outbreak. Probably focus on traveling within the country. I have been giving some serious thought. Have I done anything specific? Not really. I would love to go back and get an MSW that for a couple of years. I would really, really like to get a degree in social work, a master's degree. I think it would add a lot to the work that I do. And so even, I'm, of a certain age and probably in the next decade, I will be retiring. So, even when you retire, you still want to keep busy.
There's plan Bs.
Yes, there is plan Bs. And I don't see myself ever. I mean, I've been working in social services my entire career. Before that, I was a journalist. And I guess it's extremely important to me to be a part of the work around social and economic justice. So I think a social work degree would make sense because I could continue to support and work with people, maybe getting coaching certification. I think that's something like that is what I have in mind, but I'm very drawn to getting an MSW.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah, that's my thinking at this point.
Okay. Anita, if I were, well, actually, before we do the close, one final thought is, we have in our program we call it Insight to Go. And it could be a quote, a book, an article you've read, a TED talk you listened to, but if there's one insight that you could leave gift to our audience, what would that be?
I guess there are two. One is take risks, push yourself out of your comfort zone, and embrace technology. It is not the enemy, and keeping yourself technologically savvy is going to make all the difference. We just redesigned our entire website, including adopting a CRM. And as you know, we have a small staff. We hired a firm to develop the website, and I designed the entire CRM, all of the forms, the website, and WordPress. I did some HTML programming. And I mean, I'm 58. And, I think it's important you never stop learning. And I loved it. I was really engaged by it. I really liked it. And I'm thinking of taking a class in coding so I could understand even a little bit more. Keep learning in technology and keep your skills up. Because, folks, if you're mid career, people are going to say things like you're a Luddite. They're going to worry if you're a job seeker that you're not embracing technology. Embrace it and be prepared to talk about what you're doing that keeps you at the forefront. So take risks and embrace technology.
I love it. I love it. Anita, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where are the best places for them to go?
Well, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, send me a message. I'd be happy to talk with you. We can set up a Zoom chat. We can get you into our info sessions. We've got a page. You can take a look at some things there. And certainly look at our website, ctcchicago.org. There's profiles of our coaches, descriptions of our programs, and a button right on the homepage. Let's get started.
Fantastic.
And we're happy to work with you and love to help you in your career transition.
Fantastic. Well, we will definitely provide the backlinks to your LinkedIn profile and invite our listeners to connect with Anita. You can also find the backlink on our show notes and company page for the CTC, as well as the link to the CTC's website, ctcchicago.org. Anita, it's been a long overdue pleasure to have you as a guest on the Career Focus series on the Success Insight podcast. It's great to catch up with you and hear what you've been up to.
Howard, it's really been a pleasure and it's an honor. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And it was just great to catch up with you. It's been about a year since we've seen each other because you moved, during the pandemic.
Right.
And so we weren't able to have a going away party for you due to the pandemic. So it's great to catch up.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And thank you again. All right, folks, we've just been chatting with Anita Jenke, the Executive Director of the Career Transition Center of Chicago. The Career Transition Center is pursuing careers that tap into their skills and passions and introduces you to to kind of a new life, a style. And the CTC has been really poised during the pandemic to, transition from this, this brick and mortar model to really deliver its services virtually, with all of our coaches, 50 some coaches. We've got programming and it's all available virtually. And of course, the peer group, so very important when you are going through a career transition or looking, to make some adjustments to your career. What a pleasure to have Anita, executive of the CTC, and is somebody I've enjoyed working with, getting to know since 2009. What an organization. And I do, if you perhaps are the lead an organization or somebody that needs career transition services, without a doubt, I would recommend it and check out the range of services. It's virtual and it can be during the day, it can be in the evening, whatever works for you. Just a wonderful organization. Folks, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please visit us on successinsightpodcast.com. You can find us also on our Success Insight podcast pages on LinkedIn and on Facebook. We are on all of the podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, Amazon Music. We're on Audible, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and especially Spotify, where we have the Career Focus series playlist. So all of the episodes within the Career Focus series can be found there, and that's where you'll find this episode with Anita. Wherever you search for us, we would love to hear your comments. What did you like? What insights did you gain from today's episode? I mean, Anita shared the CTC, its programming, and really, those insights to go, take risks, get out of your comfort zone, embrace technology. Pandemic has forced us to doing just that. And really we encourage you to a little bit more. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day. Take care of yourselves, your family, your community. Wear your mask if it makes sense, practicing if it makes sense, but above all, just take care of yourself, okay? We will see you on another episode of the Career Focus series on the Success Insight podcast. Take care now.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.